In the dimly lit corners of the bustling city, where shadows intertwine with secrets, Jungkook, the enigmatic mafia lord, keeps a watchful eye over his domain. From the concealed vantage points, he observes the seriousness of the underworld. However, today his surveillance takes an unexpected turn. While navigating the maze of the city's underworld, Jungkook catches a glimpse of Wine, his wife, in a seemingly ordinary setting, a cafe bustling with patrons. By his word of honor, he would never stop or follow his wife to wherever she goes. He is possessive but doesn't cross the limits. He caught sight of her while he was walking towards the cafe to get coffee for himself. As he watched her from afar, he adored her, falling in love once again with her little gestures, like blowing on the hot coffee, tugging her hairs behind, or smiling at the birds who were flying in their own serenity. He couldn't help but stare at her. The dazzling, gleamed presence of her was enough to make his heart flutter, releasing all the tensions or any worries from his body. But his heightened senses detect a disturbance, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that sets his instincts ablaze. From the shadows, Jungkook observes a stranger, oblivious to the danger that spreads, attempts to look at his territory. The air becomes charged with an unspoken threat as the stranger engages Vine in conversation, a brazen attempt to flirt. The stranger not only looked at her with bad eyes, but approached her in the worst way possible. He came and, while waving his hand to Vine, tried to accompany Vine by sitting on the chair next to her. He smiled widely, which looked nothing but a disgust to Vine, as he leaned closer to kiss her without hesitation. Striking shock in her heart, she stood up in an instant, as she was about to scream. Jungkook's eyes narrow, a possessive fire igniting within him. He witnesses the audacity of the stranger, his gestures and words, a trespass upon what is, without saying, his. The underworld may be his realm, but in this moment, it's personal. As the stranger oversteps boundaries, Jungkook's patience wears thin. He emerges from the shadows, a silent storm sweeping through the cafe. The atmosphere shifts as the patrons, sensing the impending storm, retreat into the background. The stranger, now aware of an unseen force, turns to find Jungkook standing there, a formidable presence that commands both fear and respect. The air crackles with tension as their eyes meet, a silent exchange that speaks volumes. What do you think you are doing? Jungkook's voice, a low growl, echoes through the cafe. The stranger stammers, realizing the gravity of the situation. I didn't know she was taken. Jungkook's gaze intensifies, the possessive gleam unyielding. Now you know. In a swift and calculated move, Jungkook ensures that the message is received loud and clear. The stranger, now humbled and terrified, retreats from Vine's vicinity. The cafe returns to its semblance of normalcy, but Jungkook's vigilant eyes linger on his wife. He stared at the stranger, who was doing nothing but leaving. Jungkook couldn't be satisfied with letting him leave like that, thinking that he is still breathing at his normal pace, while Vian had her breath fasten because of him. He was raged to a point that it flowed through his veins. But deep down, he knew she doesn't like this side of him, over possessiveness. He shuts it down for when he is around her. As the stranger disappears into the city's chaos, Jungkook approaches Vine, his expression a blend of concern and possessiveness. He knows she is capable of handling herself, yet the protectiveness within him refuses to be quiet. Are you okay, Vine? He asks, his voice a low murmur. She nods, the gratitude in her eyes mirrored in his. Thank you, Jungkook. But you didn't have to. He places a finger against her lips, silencing her protest. No one should ever make you feel unsafe. You are mine, Vine. The day unfolds with Jungkook's protective aura lingering around Vine. The cafe incident becomes a mere footnote in the broader narrative of their love, but its significance is not lost on them. He smiles on her as he asks her, let's go from here. Holding her hand back for her, he walked in sync with her. Accompanied by him, she sat in his car, and before driving, he kissed on her forehead. Making her forget about the earlier incident and that weird acting guy. She had her breath stopped for a second as she continually stared at him while he drove the car. She smiled and hugged her own arms, feeling a sense of protection. She knows what will be his answer, but she would love to ask something like this on a rare occasion like today's. You know, I could protect myself earlier, she asked, her voice having a low tenor and a playful gleam in her eyes. He leans in, his hand covering hers, for he said, I know you can, but that doesn't mean I won't protect you. The much awaited dialogue from Jungkook was engulfed in her ears, which was a soft melody for her. Although he was hers already, yet she wants to be reminded daily. And these small things are a reminder to her that he ain't going anywhere, leaving her behind. No matter the casualties, he is staying with her. As they reached their mansion, she was pinned to the wall, and he gave that deadly stare of his that went for her soul. She looked back at him and hears him murmur in a deep voice, this is so unfair. A stranger was closer to you than me today. Do you know How much jealous I felt. Where is the apology I deserve? Her voice staggering. What can I do to make up for it? She asks hesitatingly. Jungkook, spend more time with me. He leans in and softly tastes the end of her ear, almost biting it. She blushed, butterflies doing things in her stomach. She wraps her arms around his neck and lays a lingering kiss on his neck. As he realizes, he smiles and bit his lips, accompanied by biting hers. He starts roughly, trying to take her tongue in his mouth. He goes deep with every passing second, and finally closes his eyes when she began to untie his tie. She threw the tie. In harmony, they moved towards the couch, as they needed to rest now. Without leaving her mouth for a bit, he gently picks her in the arms and makes her lie on the couch. She folded her legs around his back as he crawled up to her. Covering the paws towards her neck, he goes rough at it. Tasting her neck wasn't enough that he went wild. The penthouse was found hot, filled with all the warmth they had to offer. When they almost sweated, they sat on the couch, trying to relax as they continued breathing heavily. Later, in the sanctuary of their penthouse, Vine looks at Jungkook with a mixture of awe and affection. How did you know? He smiles, the intensity of the underworld momentarily replaced by a tender warmth. I'm always watching over you, even when you can't see me. Their evening becomes a quiet celebration of their connection, a dance of whispered reassurances and stolen glances. In the shadowed corners of their luxurious home, where the underworld's whispers fade, Jungkook and Vine find solace. Finding solace in the silent dialogue of their love, one that transcends the boundaries of the hidden world. They navigate together,